Hi, listeners. Welcome to your daily cup of coffee with Charu, where hopefully, with a hot cup of coffee, we discuss how to tackle the day and the week ahead based on the astrological aspects that are dominating the sky. Yesterday, I briefed you on the Mars Neptune square that's dominating the sky this week, and it's happening at the point where the solar eclipse of 10th of June will bring about a new beginning. We all have been discussing solar eclipses bring about fated changes. The changes that would normally take years and years to happen, solar eclipses bring about that all of a sudden. But there's a build up to the solar eclipse, and this aspect is very much part of a build up to the solar eclipse of 10th of June in Gemini, and Mars is right now standing at the very degrees where that eclipse is about to happen. Today, after a brief introduction, we're going to dig into your specific zodiac sign and see how this impacts you. You can catch me on YouTube as well as across the podcast platforms Anchor, Spotify. I will leave the links in description for you so you can access this episode also through the podcast platforms. My name is Charu and I'm your host on this journey. So let's dig in. As I mentioned in my post and podcast yesterday, Mars square Neptune will become exact on 9th of April and it would be felt most of this week. Mars is our drive and Neptune tends to slow it down. But there is a hindrance for a more effective and inspired action that this aspect is trying to highlight to us before we go blazing into the eclipse season with a fated shift in our life. The 10th June eclipse would be starting a new chapter at the point where this aspect is happening right now. So, understanding this aspect and the dissonance that it is creating this week, the purpose behind that dissonance is very important for you to have the right kind of beginning on 10th of June solar eclipse. North Node or Rahu has already visited and activated this eclipse in January of 2021. We have already experienced the activation of this new beginning, whether we are aware of it or not. Some of the things might be happening behind the scene and we may not be fully aware of. They will fully come out, and the physical manifestation of it will fully come out to light during the June eclipses. But the activation of the eclipse already began in January of 2021. Mars, right now, standing at that very point in Gemini, dares us to do the right thing before we enter the physical manifestation phase of that period, of that eclipse. With Neptune, Mars is trying to put the inspiration behind our action, the right inspiration behind the actions that we're going to take. A collective goal, some faith behind our actions, and making sure that we're going after something with the right purpose behind it. Sometimes we reach where we thought we wanted to go, only to realize later on that is not the destination we truly wanted to get to. And Neptune is trying to make sure that we understand that what we are going after is truly our purpose, truly our desire. Neptune dissolves social, political, religious, and personal boundaries as well that block our collective growth. And they block the birth of a new societal ideal. So, Neptune is trying to dissolve all of those hindrances and those boundaries that block that birth within ourselves as well. It teaches us to have faith in the unknown. So, if we are trying to take the practical route, the easy route, Neptune is going to try to stop us in the tracks. It teaches us to have faith in the unknown, to aim higher, aim for a higher purpose, higher road. It teaches us to love unconditionally, allow the barriers to disintegrate, and act out of a place of pure inspiration to contribute to the society versus for ego gratification or for fitting in into the society and our surrounding. It undermines the success which comes without service to the collective and without service to your own soul. It is trying to keep you honest to your own soul's purpose. Nothing is done fully for altruistic purposes, but Neptune demands that our motivations aren't inspired by pure ego boost or societal pressure. A very creative aspect is currently happening, and it makes us sensitive to both our soul's purpose as well as to the collective need and styles. So, what we create is made out of pure love. It is made from a place of wanting to channel our soul. And there is an element of self transcendence over here where we don't necessarily keep ourselves and our ego gratification as the front of what we are trying to do. What we hold at the front of our mind when we are going after something, when Neptune is aspecting it, is a higher purpose. And that is bound to touch others on a deeper in a deeper way. And it will serve the collective in a much, much more meaningful way. So let's put some meat on the bones now by looking at your sign. And as usual, check your rising sign. That is the key indicator. And if you're able to, check the sun and the moon sign for a fuller picture. But rising sign would be the key indicator for how this aspect is playing out for you. So let's dig in. Hi Capricorn, this aspect for you is playing out in your work environment and health routines. So a new cycle, the 10th of June eclipse will start a new cycle in bringing order in your life. It brings some physical healing in form of some health solutions, and it brings an opportunity to start a new project, a new work environment, or at the very least a new business practice that helps you bring order to work. It brings more balance in your life, and that's what you're being asked for, to bring more balance in your life. You're a person with the need for more flexibility in your work, more air in your work environment, so you can think, create, innovate, interact, read, and have lively, stimulating conversations and contracts. And there is a need for that air to be created, that, you know, wavelength, that bandwidth to be created, because your schedule might be too crowded. And in order to handle that kind of balance, you might look for a new project, you might look for a new work routine, you might look for a new work environment. But this need for balance in your work routine is very much highlighted and might have come to surface more through a fated event in December or January. Even the need to take care of your health might have come up with that fated event in December or January, while you're ready for this new start and might be right now even chipping away, looking for a new role or putting down bricks for a new project you're building or a new health routine you're researching on. There is a blockage that needs to be crossed over to get to it. Neptune is making the details of it very tough to come. There might be some confusion around it. There could be choices to be made. There could be some unknown, from a health perspective, some unknown blockage as well. It's like when we have a lot of paperwork to get through, but our mind is with the fairies in some ways. It's like clouded mind in some ways, but we have to make a choice in terms of bringing more balance in our life through a work change, through a health change. Neptune is opening you up to another dimension of thinking, which is a dormant talent you so far may not have leveraged fully on. It's almost like people don't need to say things to you. You feel their vibe and you feel how they're feeling. That can be fantastic for client situations. It can be fantastic for creative writing. But this can have its own issues because you can feel everybody's vibe. And when the boundaries are low, we feel everything, especially in a negative work environment. So your sensitivity might be really, really high. The sensitivity of your mind to sense what people are thinking, feeling, and the undercurrent would be very high, which, as I said, is great because you sort of can enter a room and feel the vibe and understand what the people want from you or what you need to create for clients. And it could be very good to give yourself to a paper, to commit yourself to a paper, because you sort of can pour out some creative idea on a piece of sheet, but it can affect you physically and in health as well. So that's something you need to take care of, especially this is happening in this eclipse in June will happen in Gemini. So we need to take care about of our throat chakra at that time. This is any kind of like bronchitis or throat infection. At that time, just keep your immunity up. And that is something that right now as well you'll be prompted to do. Intuition is a muscle that you're developing and learning how to lean more on, and that is something might be at play as well right now. That's a positive side effect along with enhanced creativity of this, and it should be leveraged in your work. Leverage this enhanced intuition, leverage this creative flair. Neptune is also promoting you to research on spiritual matters, possibly, because it helps you find your invisible guides and support system. It gives more method to the madness. It's like we're not just hanging around and doing all these tasks in our life without a purpose behind it. So it sort of is giving your mind a dose of spirituality, a dose of positive creativity, which is expanding your outlook to life. It's giving you access to more talents, more thought process that you did not have before. Maybe sometimes we need to press on, and details will fill in. That thought process, the spiritual thought process, the creative thought process is prompting you to press on even when the details have not filled in. Maybe sometimes it's okay to not know everything. As a Capricorn, that's a tough thing for you to have, but it's teaching you to be okay to not know everything. As a Capricorn, you need to be over prepared before you go into a job, over qualified before you go into applying even for a job, or over prepared before you get in a project, which is your strength. But sometimes maybe you don't need to know everything before you go in. Maybe you just need the hunch. Maybe you need to rely a little bit more on that. Maybe you need to rely a little bit more on your intuition. And that's a different side of your brain. That's a different side of your thinking process that you're developing right now. And maybe it's better not to know everything from where you stand, because you'll not take that step, which can take you to a much more expansive place if you try to figure everything out right now. At the same time, Neptune is prompting you possibly to take a different approach to your work. So there might be a hurdle related to co-workers, related to project, related to a critic, related to an enemy at work, related to a problem, which in your normal element you would try to meet head on in some ways, maybe even with a firm hand right now. But maybe there is another way to go about it. Neptune is trying to blunt this confrontation and asking you to take a softer approach without you don't have to not speak up. It's not saying that we should not speak up. You must speak up. But there's another way to go about it, possibly. Sometimes we take a step back to be sure that we say it without the anger which will burn the bridges. So we can achieve what we're trying to achieve, and to be sure that we aren't sweating the small things by deriving too much meaning out of the small things or events. When you try to feel the vibe too much, which Neptune is reducing your boundaries with your surroundings, we might derive a lot of meaning out of small things. So don't get lost in over analysis. You need to say something, you want something from work and your work environment, take the strength away from it by talking about it, but bring compassion and bring in direct approach in, so it doesn't burn the bridges. Normally it's more than what we are making out to be in our mind, because that thought process is going round and round in our imagination. As I said, your imagination is stoked, so it gets bigger and bigger with each turn. Sometimes elements of past confrontation with either our sibling or our past environment continues to play on our new place of work and environment, and Neptune is trying to erase that past so you can go kosher and you can go in with this new work, with this new way of handling co-workers without the past conditioning. You do need to speak up about your creative ideas, though. That is very, very important, and this aspect is very much highlighting that. Speak up is, if I could just give a title to this aspect, it would be speak up. If you have ideas, speak up. Express yourself more in work. Great ideas are of no use unless they're spelled out and communicated. This imagination and creativity that is enriching you and enriching your output and your mind, you have to direct it into writing, into client engagement, into doing multiple jobs with these. Even in health healing professions, you have to make sure that it comes out, because if you're not speaking up in some ways, it will affect your health as well, because it's showing as an aspect of being bottled up, in some ways. Make sure it's not, you sort of are not exhausting this voice that you've been given in trying to deal with critics and problem makers at work, but you're using it to voice what you want. Your voice is elevated here. There's more creativity, more elements of nuances that are coming in your voice. You have ideas which are different from what others have. You have a charm about your words. You're able to read the room, use those skills positively, and as your mind is being opened up to new dimension, bring that in your work. Spiritual practice and mind can make us firmer, stronger in standing up for our ideas and for standing up in tough work situations. Creative flair and imagination can add that zing to your work. The unique thought process that you have, which goes beyond bogged down, tarnished, detailed, old views that others have, that can be such a breath of fresh air and work for everybody. The compassionate mind that you have can be so soothing to coworkers and clients. The person who can read their mind and understand their needs cannot match anyone with years of experience, multiple degrees. You can have all of that. But a person who can actually know what they truly need, that is the person usually the clients or the customers want on the other side. And you are that person, but it looks to me like there is a blockage. You're not expressing yourself, and that is a hurdle that you're being asked to cross over so you can start this new chapter in your career. You can start this new chapter in your balance. You can start asking in some ways if there are unfair behaviors at work where you're being not delegating things or being taken on load from others or being deceit. There's deceit with coworkers in some ways where things are being piled on you unfairly. This aspect to me says, use your compassion, use the indirect approach, use your creativity to voice your words, voice your ideas, and to make sure that you set the balance right, set the boundaries right, set the business practices right. And then you can perform at your peak frequency and create the kind of work that you truly want to create while taking care of yourself. So that's what I have for you, Capricorn. This is all happening around 19 to 22 degree. The Neptune is in positive aspect with all of you, so it's adding to all of you, but especially if you have planets around 22 degree of Capricorn, which is around 13th of January born, you can really write something out of this world or come up with a brilliant idea. I would really use this for expressing. The new start, the eclipse that's happening in June is happening around 19 degree. I have to be honest with you, it will not come easy. This will come with a little bit of effort, but it's an internal boundary that you need to cross, and that is especially true for people who have planets around 19 degree of Capricorn, which is around 11th of January born. It affects all of you, but especially for 11th of January born, I would also suggest, and with planets around 19 degree of Capricorn, I would also suggest to take care of your health. There might be a new health routine that you need to put in practice, which brings more healing to you, but this could be related to immunity, related to throat, which you need to take care of, and you need to just up your immunity right from now to be prepared for it, essentially, and get your fitness in place for that. So that's what I have for you. I'll see you in the next video now. Thank you.